this computer. We're going live. Preparing live stream. Got it. Well, it's taking a second here. Sorry for you on the recording. It's going to be good. Trust me.
We should have a drum roll.
Yeah. So everyone, welcome Stephanie Bennett to the Prostate Network. We had her as a guest at our meeting last month, talking about mental health and cancer, and it was absolutely fantastic. So we are going to create a video podcast and audio podcast and live stream it here. So welcome, Stephanie. Please tell us a little bit about yourself and let's get right into it.
Thanks, Steve. Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Hi, everyone. As Steve said, my name is Stephanie Bennett. I am a licensed master social worker in the Kansas City area. A bit of brief history about myself is I recently got my master's of social work degree from the University of Denver. Prior to that, I worked for many years in the research world, working with folks at different cancer centers, clinics, things like that. And many years ago, achieved my bachelor's in psychology from the Minnesota State University Mankato system. And since then, I've been working with folks in the mental health capacity in lots of different ways, shapes, and forms. And I had the privilege to work with Steve last week at the Prostate Network October meeting. So I'm glad to be here to answer some questions.
Okay, so tell us what the mental health is and is not. I thought that was really good.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's some misinformation out there about what mental health is and is not. So mental health is a part of everyone's life. It is not something that you can change in a big way right away. It takes small concerted efforts over time. It is real and complex. Mental health is really important, and it is something to look after. Mental health is health. Mental health is not a sign of weakness. It's not all in your head. Mental health is not just something you can snap out of, and it's not something to be ashamed of. Taking care of your mental health is a huge part of what it means to be human, to live a healthy life.
And you had a lot of statistics, I remember. Can you share a few of those?
Yeah, absolutely. So mental health affects most people. If not you yourself, then someone you know. 1 in 5 Americans will have a diagnosable mental health condition in any given year. That's close to 50 million Americans will be impacted by a mental health diagnosis. And that includes things like anxiety, depression, includes bipolar 1 and 2 disorders, autism spectrum disorders. It goes down the gamut, but just those buzzwords that we know are not the only ones. So while we can say like, oh, I was really depressed last week, that's valid, but there's also certain things that warrant professional attention. So we can talk some more about what mental health looks like, both in the commonplace culture as well as in the medical setting.
So how many people that get cancer go through a mental health crisis?
Yeah, that's a good question. When I gave this stat last week, the peanut gallery, Steve, was acting up here. So allegedly, according to the data that's out there that's published and verified, 1 in 3 cancer patients will experience a mental health problem during or after treatment. And 1 in 3 is pretty high, but Steve, would you agree with that one? Not so much.
I don't think that there is anyone who's told they have prostate cancer that doesn't experience a crisis. It's so hard. You know, you're just cruising through life and you just get blindsided by this. It's one of the worst things you can have happen to you. And that leads me, there were several questions that I jotted down from the meeting that I want to dive into. And that is, you know, thinking about mental health, what's the best way to handle it when you're first being diagnosed? That's a real crisis point.
Absolutely. Yeah. As I spoke about last week and continue to use in my work, once people hear the big C, a lot of people kind of go blank. It's like an oh my God moment of now what? So many things come at you, and it's hard to know where exactly to begin. So I appreciated what you're saying, Steve, about how probably everyone sometime during the process does have a moment of panic or a few moments of like, well, now what? So in those first couple of minutes, it's easy to say, but I really do encourage folks to take a beat, take a breath, and realize that they are not alone in this. There are so many supports out there within your own network, family, friends, loved ones, people like that who are ready to stand behind you and beside you on this journey. You also have your care team. Wherever you're receiving treatment, you can rely on and lean into the supports that you have at whatever institution you're receiving care at. So there are people there who are ready to help. But one of the first things I like to share with people is when you're overwhelmed and there's so many things to do, write everything down. Get a big sheet of paper and every little thing you can think of, big, small, whatever it can be, just write it all down. And it might seem scary, but when you see it all on paper, it makes it a little more manageable to be able to go, okay, these are health things, these are life things, these are practical things that I can put in order, disseminate to others, ask for help on some things like that. So that's usually where I instruct people to begin if that's something they're comfortable with. But also giving lots of responses on this question, it's an individual process. So honor what you're feeling in that moment. If you like my idea of writing everything down on paper, great. If that's not your speed, that's okay too. Figure out what's going to work well for you so that you're not feeling quite as overwhelmed in that moment. And also honor the fact that you are going to be overwhelmed in that moment. That makes sense and that is okay.
Something that came up in our meeting I thought was really encouraging, and it was really a more recent breakthrough, is that there was people talking about how they had gotten offered help and they were asked if they were in crisis.
Mhm.
So I would just encourage everyone out there who's providing care in interfacing with people that are in the newly diagnosed status to really offer and ask, because this is something that people don't know. They maybe never even experienced a mental health crisis in their lifetime, so they don't even know to ask. And,
Mhm.
and so if the professionals can do that, it sounded like we've got a real positive trend of the experts trying to help get people connected to folks like you now. So thank you to everyone who's doing that. Another great question was, you can't go back to life like the way it was after you get your cancer. You get your cancer and you get your treatment, you get a good outcome, but you can't just go back to life how it was. Was some of the tips you had for the mental health of post-treatment?
Sure. So mental health, of course, is ongoing. It's not just, the before and the after. So what you're talking about, it sounds like, once you've received some of that treatment, a lot of things that I hear from people are kind of the change going from receiving treatment, usually in a pretty consistent fashion, maybe going in for daily treatments or pretty regular follow-ups, and then going into the survivorship mode of maybe not having that same contact at your health facility or whatever that looks like to you. Establishing a new normal, I use air quotes there, new normal, is a double-edged sword, because we want to honor the fact that you've made it through this journey and that you are in this new place, but also you're the same person at some point that you were before. So trying to honor both pieces of that personality, of that person who you are, is really important. And so one of the ways that I shared is to really engage with your support network. If you hadn't during your treatment, I would really encourage folks to tap into their supports, family and friends, resume a sense of normalcy, see folks, hang out, do the things that you might have not been doing during treatment, and resuming some of those activities. In addition to also finding new things that you might not have tried before. I really focus in sessions with folks on reflective practice. I highly encourage people engage in things like journaling or support groups or places where they can put out into the world what they're experiencing so that they can process it more. We talked about in group how it's necessary sometimes to compartmentalize things, put things in a box and put them on the shelf for later, so that when we have the capacity, we can revisit them and spend the time engaging and processing. But we can't always do that. So I encourage folks through treatment, through the process of getting to the quote unquote new normal, begin and continue dealing with these things with whatever supports you've got, including the familial support as well as professional support, should you be comfortable in pursuing that.
Oh, great info. Okay, I got one more. I love this analogy. It was a football analogy, and it was,
Mhm.
we're sitting on the 20. We know we're going to score. The analogy was with that you've got to have comfort with your treatment plan and what you're going to do and where you're going to go.
Mhm.
Tips on the ways to get comfortable.
Absolutely. I love that analogy because we very fortunately in this place and time have great treatments for a lot of diseases, and every treatment looks different for each person. You see one cancer story, you see one cancer story. They are all unique, they are all individual. Everyone who's going through it has different players involved, has different experiences involved. So, wherever you're at, whatever team you're on, when you're starting at that 20-yard line, first and foremost, tap into the people you can rely on. If you are fortunate enough to have a large support team of people that you can lean into, a med onc, a surge onc, these are the physicians, as well as the nurses and the other care staff who can help connect you with people like myself, mental health supports, social workers, psycho-oncologists. All of those people are there to serve you in whatever capacity you are able to bring to the table. And that could be a conversation like, I'm scared, I don't know what's going on. Or it could be more practical things like, I want to plan for a funeral. If it's this year, if it's in 20 years, what does that look like, being there for that person in whatever way, shape, or form they can be. It's also showing up for yourself, being able to recognize, like, okay, I might not be able to listen to everything in these medical sessions. Does that mean I'm going to bring another pair of ears with me? Does that mean I'm going to bring a tape recorder and ask my physician if I can record the session so that I can listen to it later and pause things as I'm going through, take notes, all those different pieces. So being an active participant in your care is hugely important, as well as being your own advocate. In group last week, we talked about how this is one of the first times most people get a chance to participate in their medical treatment after a diagnosis. A lot of the time, the doctor's the expert, take this, go home, call me tomorrow, that type of thing. And now sometimes people have more options of what would you like to do. And so this is a great opportunity for folks to become really comfortable with all the pieces that they're juggling, all of the stuff that they need to try and understand. And it's okay to ask for questions. If you don't, no one else is going to. You are your own advocate, and showing up for yourself in that way is hugely important. And then, in addition to that, I am also, of course, a huge fan of mental health. I think that being able to talk vulnerably, even if it's not with a professional like myself, being able to talk to someone else, a support group, a family friend, whomever it is, just to say, like, this is hard, man, because of course it is. And being able to be vulnerable with that and touch on that space that we don't pay a lot of attention to in our society, for better or for worse, giving some of that the light of day is just so good for yourself, both overtly and covertly. Your mental health is part of your physical overall health. So taking care of that is bringing you towards that touchdown, bringing you towards the end zone.
Yeah, we would always preach that you have to get comfortable, that whatever it takes, if it's one doctor's visit, if it's two different places, if it's three, if it's talking to other survivors, whatever it is, get comfortable with your plan and then never look back, because there's no do-overs. And so the best advice has always been, to get comfortable. And I love how we've added in recognizing that your mental health may be off when you're trying to make these really important decisions. And so this is the hardest time in life to slow down, but the most important. And so slow down, get all the help that you need, get comfortable, and then you just jump in with both feet. And then you get that, you're on the 20, you're going to score. And yeah, you're going to take a couple hits and you're not going to get it on the first play, but you will get there. And so I just encourage everyone to take advantage of all these great tips that Stephanie has brought to the table, and coming to our meetings. I mean, it's sort of a mental health break. It's a safe place at our meetings, and I'm sure that there are others around the country that are creating those safe places. So seek them out and get help. So in closing, you've got to offer any more last tips and maybe some of the important resources, like kind of national ones that people could lean on to
Yeah,
get connected.
absolutely. Yeah, so a couple of resources that I would love to uplift are the National Alliance on Mental Illness, or NAMI. Their whole mission is something that is near and dear to my heart, and that is destigmatizing mental health. We're frequently told to man up or, suck it up, whatever that looks like. And that is the antithesis of what we could be doing. We don't want to suck it away. As I mentioned, there's a time and place to be able to take some of that and put it away for a little bit, but it's so important to get it back out. And it is okay to ask for help. And that doesn't necessarily mean lay down on my couch and tell me about your childhood and things like that. That's literally coming and talking to a professional like myself or a trusted friend or support group and saying, this is hard. Because of course it is. No one would blame you for that. Another statistic that it would surprise no one, but I just wanted to include as well is the odds of being depressed among cancer patients are more than 5 times higher than the general population, because of course. So it makes even more sense for folks who are impacted by illness to seek out treatment. Another resource that is national that has just gotten off the ground, we know to call 911 if we're experiencing a regular emergency and a mental health emergency. 988 is who you're calling if you're having those thoughts, if you're having those moments of, I don't know where to go, what to do from here, those dark thoughts. The 988 resource is for anyone at any time, a 24-hour resource. There are additional warm lines, not quote hotlines, but warm lines that are available through local municipalities. So just Google your area and warm line or mental health resource. In addition to that, some cancer specific resources. There are so many, but I will try and keep it brief with Gilda's Club is one that I have used time and time again. They're an affiliate of the Cancer Support Community, who is a great resource. And in addition, the American Cancer Society for education, tips, resources, support groups, you name it, it can be found. In 2023, we have the blessing of the internet, and there are so many things available out there. Finally, I'd be remiss if I didn't, of course, again, plug mental health professionals like myself. That could be a social worker, that could be a therapist, that could be a marriage and family counselor, that could be a psychologist, a psychiatrist, the list goes on. Psychologytoday.com is like the Google of websites for finding a mental health provider. You can search by area, and even more than that, I would highly encourage that resource. But you know what's indicated for yourself. You are the expert. Listen to what you think you need and try and pursue that. And if you're a little uncomfortable, know that being uncomfortable is the beginnings of making a change and that it's okay. I could probably continue talking about this ad nauseum, but I want to be considerate of everyone's time. And thank you, Steve, so much for allowing me to take the time to speak today.
No, thank you. And everyone, talking does help, and mental health is health. And Stephanie, thank you for all you're doing. You all have a wonderful day.
Thank
Bye.
you, Steve.